This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. We are here in London and I am joined by promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, before we come on to the obvious topic, how are you feeling and how are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate the invite. Of course, I know there's other media members waiting to speak to yourself. I imagine it's going to be a busy night ahead for you. But yeah, let's just... Busy night. Well, yeah, given it's like 4 or 5 o'clock now, so I imagine you'll be up late doing these interviews. But let's obviously just get into it. Yesterday, we saw yourself and boxer Frazer Clarke from potential purse bids for the fight with Fabio Wardley for that British heavyweight title. First, the most obvious question is, Ben, why?
Look, we were never going to do that fight in that situation. We didn't call for the purse bids. I was astonished when it got ordered. We've been trying to make the fight for a long time during the purse bids and before then. And a fighter that we care about, that we think is supremely talented, that we think is capable of huge things in the sport, any boxing trainer or anyone that's ever worked in boxing will know that rounds make a difference. It doesn't matter how talented you are. His team have wanted him to fight 6-rounders and get busy and get active. He's fought one 8-rounder that went 2 rounds, and they want in potentially 3 weeks, which was if another promoter, any promoter, won the purse bid, they could stage it in 21 days, go into his first 12-rounder like that. It's just not going to happen. And I think from a boxing perspective, it's a no-brainer. We're not going to be pushed into a situation that we know is not right for him. Yes, we want the biggest fights. Yes, we want the best fights. Yes, we want to work with everyone, and that's why that's why we've been trying to make this fight for this year, in the right circumstances, with the biggest promotion we possibly can give it, and with making sure that he's done at least a 10-rounder. This would be the fastest British title heavyweight British title in history. Whether he takes it this fight, next fight, or the fight after this year, we want to make the fight, but we're not going to be careless. We're not going to be pushed into a corner to do something that goes around against every boxing instinct in our body. It doesn't matter who he's fighting. You don't go from 6-rounders essentially into your first 12-rounder in that sort of situation.
So Ben, what would have been the difference if you'd have pursued the fight through negotiations outside of purse bids and the fight going through purse bids for you? Why did it make more sense to negotiate that as opposed to going through the purse bid process?
Because we have a plan for Frazer where he gets to have an 8-rounder, he gets to have his 10-rounder, and then he's ready. This isn't about his talent, this isn't about his ability, this is about having the rounds, the championship rounds, and making sure that he's had that experience. He can win that fight tomorrow, but we're not doing our job if he's not been afforded that learning that every fighter, whether it's Joe Joyce, Anthony Joshua, Frazer Clarke, any fighter that's done extremely well in the amateurs will be afforded. I think Anthony Joshua fought for a British title in his 15th fight. Joe Joyce in his 12th. Joe Joyce, I think, was older and had achieved just as much as Frazer Clarke. So, as I say, we want to make that fight. We've been trying to push for that fight. We're trying to negotiate that fight. But we're not going to be put in a situation where he can be going into a 12-rounder on 3 weeks' notice, because it's just careless. And we care about our fighter, and he'll fight anyone, but it's careless, and that's it.
Ben, saying the 12-round on 3 weeks' notice, I don't imagine Matchroom, if they'd have won the purse bid, for example, or yourselves, I don't imagine that it would have been a 3-week notice period. It needs a couple months to build at least, and both men would have to get into camp to prepare for each other. So why is it you're suggesting 3 weeks?
Well, it's not the notice. It's just completely out of our hands. He won't be able to have. We believe he needs to have an 8-rounder, a 10-rounder. Anyone in boxing would believe it. I'm honestly find it ridiculous that anyone would suggest that he doesn't. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter who he is. That is the end of it, and that's why the purse bid was so ridiculous after 6 fights and 6-rounders to even call for that and make sure and make that a mandatory. It's a fight that we're negotiating anyway. We want him to break records. We want him to become the fastest heavyweight to a British title. But I have to, despite it doesn't matter what corner I'm put in or how things have happened or how things are put in, I'm not going to go against what I know is best. It doesn't matter how much I'm personally criticised or how much of a position it puts me in. Frazer Clarke is a huge star. Frazer Clarke needs to be afforded a couple of fights. Maybe it's just the one fight where we're like, yes, he's had his 10 rounds. We've done our job, and now he can go into it, and that's the situation that the purse bid just didn't allow.
Robert Smith has said publicly that Team Clarke had pursued and lobbied for the fight to be ordered. Who lobbied for that, and again, why lobby for a fight that you had no intention on taking to purse bids?
I agree. I think it's a question for his management, and I don't want to put anyone under the bus. I'm just going to say what my opinion is on the situation. We've since spoken. We've decided as a team it's clearly not a smart boxing decision from a development perspective, and sometimes you have to make those bold decisions. But yeah, I don't want to throw 258 under a bus. I don't want to question anything like that. That's not my job. And I stand behind my decision, and I know it was the right one. And I think in 6 months' time, time will prove that.
What's the relationship like with Frazer at the minute, and how is he doing? Because he's obviously been very silent since yesterday.
Look, I think when other promoters are saying he's ducking a fight and he's calling them out, and it's almost like he's new to that. He's new to that experience. He's now in the public eye. That can be difficult for anyone coming from not being in that, and having people question that he's not as good as Fabio Wardley or other fighters at that level is going to hurt him. And so he reacts, and that's why we love him. He's a genuine guy. He's a genuine fighter, and he wants to take the fights on at whatever stage of his career. But he understands that he's got a team that care about him, that want to make sure that when he takes a fight, he's been prepared well for it. And that's what it is. And as a training team, and as a management team, and as a fighter, we have to, and as a promoter, we have to look after Frazer Clarke and almost save him from himself sometimes.
Fabio Wardley did a number of interviews yesterday, Ben. I'm sure you've been made aware of those. And speaking with me directly, he said that he's heard that everybody on Frazer Clarke's side, so yourself, Boxer, Sky, 258, everybody involved, they're talking indirectly. They're not talking as a group in discussions. There's not somewhat of a clear line of communication between everyone. Has that been the case throughout this process?
Not throughout the process, but the fact that when the purse bid was ordered, as I say, I didn't know. And so I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I didn't know. And I'm left with a situation where I'm left with, do I do what's right or do I do what's easy? And I'm going to do what's right. And that's how I've been, that's the way I am. That's the values that I have. It doesn't matter how much heat I have to take. It doesn't matter what other people think. I believe that we know what we're doing. I believe I have a very, very experienced team, and we're not going to go and do something that is, in boxing terms, absolute stupidity. And that's not because of an opponent. That's because of a purse bid, and after his sixth fight, throwing him into a 40% situation in his first 12-rounder, on the basis that other people that don't want the best for him and aren't looking out for his career want to do it.
Can you divulge more of the details around the negotiations you was doing privately to try and make that fight? Where did things get to? Because obviously, again, Fabio coming out saying that your offer was less than what he'd received for Michael Kofi.
Yeah, again, that's not true. And I am respectful to his management team. I'm not going to put his offer online unless they want me to. I'm happy to. I know for a fact it's over what he's ever earned, and I know for a fact an offer I made yesterday was a one-fight deal and was a huge amount more than he's ever earned, possibly double. But I don't want to discuss specific purses that I'm negotiating with a certain team unless they want me to. I would love if they say to me, if they email me and say, right, that's fine for me to do, then I'll do that. And I don't want to cause disruption in their camp. That is the situation. We have been trying to make this fight. We thought we could make this fight right up until yesterday. We still think we can make this fight. We've never been told to discuss with other promoters. This isn't about other promoters and trying to do fights with other promoters. There's nothing to do with that. We want to work with other promoters. We've never been told to discuss with another promoter. And we'll continue to try and make the fight. And as I say, if they want me to disclose the numbers, of course I will, but I'm respectful.
I think most people would have imagined that on the back of the purse bids falling through yesterday, that talks were coming to a standstill away from that. Have they continued? From the way you're speaking, it would suggest that you're still in communication, attempting to make that fight.
Look, I think they want to let the dust settle, which is fair enough. It was a lot of noise, and it shows the interest in the fight and the interest in Frazer Clarke. And I think there's been a very carefully created PR situation to try and get us to do something, or Frazer to do something against his, try and get Frazer to do something that we know is not right. We think the offer is so big from us that he's not going to earn that anywhere else, and hopefully we can still get the fight on. But again, I don't want to cause disruption. We know what we've offered, we know our position, we know what's right, and that's that. And yeah, it's a massive fight now, and Frazer Clarke is a massive name.
How confident are you that they cross paths at some point, whether it be to a timeline you'd like or a timeline you wouldn't like? How confident are you that they do share the ring for that British title?
Look, unless they're going to stand in the way now because of X, Y, Z, of course the fight will happen. We can offer huge money. This is the biggest fight. Fabio Wardley's profile, just by being associated with Frazer Clarke, has gone through the roof. And we know the power of Frazer Clarke. We know it's the biggest fight that he can have. And we're offering huge money for it, more than I believe anyone else would offer for it. We just wanted to make it at the right time. We want the big promotion. We want the gloves are off. How many times do fights go to purse bids? You don't have the promotional obligations that you need to build a big fight. We're planning Frazer's career. We want the biggest fights possible. We believe that fight will happen this year, and it will be up to Fabio and his team to accept it.
Ben, if you wasn't keen on the idea of purse bids, one thing people will be eager to know is why wait until very much so the 11th hour to pull out of us? Why not do it sooner?
We genuinely believe we would do a deal, and that we were talking up until the last moment. We thought we would do a deal. I did try and make it clear to Fabio's team that we weren't going to go through with purse bids. It wasn't sensible for us in terms of the timelines and the fact that we wanted Frazer to have another fight, and that was it. And so when it came down to it and the deal wasn't accepted, then that's where we were left with no choice, because, as I say, it's stupidity. It's not even a question, and that's that.
At what point did Frazer or Fabio's team become aware that you weren't going to go down the route of purse bids?
We made it clear to Fabio's team that we would like to get a deal done because we weren't going to go through with purse bids. At what point? Don't know. But as soon as that purse bid was caught, I was very clear that, yeah, that is not something that we think is right, because it doesn't give Frazer the time that every boxer needs to just fight those championship rounds, have that experience, and then go into the 12-round fight.
I'm sure whether you've watched it or not, a certain promoter who was also bidding for that, or was planning to bid for that fight, Eddie Hearn, had a few choice words to say. Just to kind of throw some of those at you, he said, it's embarrassing. You saw his tweet. He's deflated. You keep on talking about, you want to provide fighters with opportunities. You want to work with other promoters, and yet this is how things fall. Just your thoughts on anything that Eddie Hearn's had to say in the past 24 hours?
This is purely for the fighter. Frazer Clarke's going to win far more money, even this year, than he would in that purse bid. He's still going to get those fights. Every fight that he has is big. Every domestic fight that he has is big. And his team know that. And that's why, as a team, we've made that decision. He knows, other promoters know, and don't want the back and forth. They know why. Of course they know why. This is an attempt to try and get us involved in that stuff. And we want to continue to work with promoters. At any point, if Fabio's team has said speak to our promoter, we would have, and we'll continue to try and make that fight. But it's nothing to do with this promoter or that promoter. This is timelines. This is making sure a fighter has the right experience, because that's our job, and making sure he's had the rounds and doing the fight at the right time for Frazer Clarke, who is a potential star in British boxing and wants the biggest nights ahead. So we will provide that. This is for the fighter, and yeah.
I remember interviewing you last week, and I mentioned to you that Eddie had done a few interviews saying that he'd be happy to have more dialogue with yourself. He said that you speak more with Frank Smith as opposed to him. Have you spoken with Eddie at all in the last 24 hours, or the Matchroom team, if not Eddie?
No, I think obviously they've come out and have not been very strong on this. But about this particular fight, as I say, I've discussed with Fabio Wardley's team. I've never been asked to discuss with them. We're happy to discuss with whoever we need to make that fight, and that is the long and short of it. The first time that they were involved in the fight was yesterday, and when they were going to make a purse bid, that was it. And yeah, it's nothing to do with them. We want dialogue. Of course we want dialogue, and as soon as Fabio Wardley's team say, right, this is our promoter, let's discuss, then no problem.
The Harry Armstrong fight, I could have missed it. I don't believe Boxer officially announced it. He came from International Boxing News, who'd first reported it, and we'd first seen it, or at least I'd seen it. With that note, how long had you been working on that fight to land on June 10th? To
be honest, we've not even announced Frazer Clarke's next fight.
So it might not be Harry Armstrong.
We'll announce that next week, and that's something that we'll announce with our broadcaster next week. We need him to go and have a 10-round fight, even if it's one. This is one of the fastest rises to the British title in history, but we're not going to be reckless.
Given the criticisms of Frazer's career so far and the opponents that he shared the ring with, and with no disrespect to Harry Armstrong, you wouldn't imagine he's somebody who will cause Frazer and any issues when he steps between the ropes. Let's say if it's somebody like Harry Armstrong, what do you feel that Frazer could gain from that as opposed to somebody more established, or maybe are you going back to the Fabio fight?
First of all, that's not a fight that we've announced. And second of all, I want him to have experience of doing a 10 or 12 rounder. Of course I do. I don't even understand. I'm getting frustrated with the question. He needs 10 rounds. He needs a 12-round fight. It's not about the quality of opponent. He's not done the rounds.
But then
it's a fitness thing. Ask any boxer.
That would be different then, Ben. Let's say he has a 10-round fight against. I don't want to seem like I'm digging, just because he'd been mentioned Harry Armstrong, as opposed to say somebody who you would expect to cause him more problems. There's a difference between going 10 rounds and just feeling out how you feel, and then going 10 rounds in a tough fight where you've gained something and you've learned something from it against an opponent who's been more aggressive and maybe challenged you more.
Correct. He needs a fight of that ilk, 100%. You're talking about a fight that's not been announced.
So it won't be Harry Armstrong, Ben.
You're talking about the fight that's not been announced. Yeah.
That's fair enough, Ben. And then just kind of moving away from that, Ben, how do you foresee the remainder of this year playing out for Frazer?
He'll fight in June. We'll announce that this week. If we can get a deal done with Fabio Wardley, we'd like to do that fight in September or December, whatever works for both fighters, and we'll make it the biggest fight that we can possibly make. And Frazer, we feel then, is in a position where we're not being reckless. As I say, I never call for this purse bid. I'm in a situation where I have to do what I feel is right, what I know is right, and that's that. And our team have Frazer Clarke's best interests at heart, and will deliver the big paydays for Frazer and can offer more for that fight than we believe than anyone, and offer more to Fabio Wardley than any other fight that he can get.
Ben, my SD card there just slightly run out of space, so we have to pick this back up. But yeah, moving away from the Wardley-Clarke talk, new date, Smith-Eubank Jr to July 1st. How happy are you to be able to get that one on so quickly after the originally proposed date? And
yeah, I was concerned, but Liam Smith's a true professional, knows his body very, very well, knows the injury that he's got, and the advice was just give yourself an extra couple of weeks. He knows what it is, and luckily we get the fight that we want to see on July the 1st. Marshall Cruz moves, Chelly Heffron, Ben Whittaker now on the card as well, Tasha Jonas. It's a huge night in Manchester for boxing, and yeah, thankful that we're going to see the fight, and Liam Smith has done everything he can to be fit and is ready to go. With
June 10th obviously clashing with a Matchroom show, now June 17th has become available, is there any chance that you might consider moving your show? Or
I've not looked at that. You never know. I need to look at that. Obviously June 17th moving gives us a big opportunity, but let's see if there's anything to fill that. I think Bournemouth's our next show, May 27th, which is fast approaching now. So yeah, it's a huge 3 shows, May 27th, June 10th and July 1st now, and we're looking, because of the changes, to find something else.
I do just want to touch on Birmingham because I never caught you after the show. Joshua Buatsi's return. Some people underwhelmed. What were your thoughts?
Look, I'd have loved him to knock him out and put on a statement. Power Stepien did everything he could to stay out of action, really. His footwork was good, and he's an experienced fighter, and he's a tough guy, and Yes, Buatsi could have done a lot more. Yes, he could have jumped on him. Yes, he could have shown us the aggression that we're used to seeing. But for us, maybe it's a bit like a necessary evil. When you've had a fighter out 12 months and he's changed promotional company, we saw it with Lawrence. We had to go through it. Now we get the big fights in the same way Okoli's jumped into Bill and Smith and in a stadium fight, and there's so many fights now to make there. It's the same with Josh Buatsi, and yeah, we're just delighted that he got through, got the rounds, and now is ready to keep active and have the big fights that we all want to see him in. It wasn't it wasn't the statement we wanted, but there's big things to come for Mr. Buatsi.
Ben Whittaker, I said to you during our interview last week that you was gushing over him. Was you gushing over him on Saturday night?
Listen, he's an entertainer. I see so much criticism for Ben Whittaker, and it's like, what do you want? Do you want someone that knows how to, that's an entertainer? Then you get criticised if you're boring. This guy is a star, and boxing needs stars, and boxing needs stars that are going to cross over, stars that the football fans, the cricket fans, the F1 fans, the guys that never watch boxing are going to want to watch. Ben Whittaker's that guy for professional boxing. There's so much going on now with celebrity boxing and things not happening, and he's a breath of fresh air in my opinion. He really is, and the fact that he can do this in his third fight, and I say that in terms of personality, in terms of confidence. Smith-Eubank Jr is now a showman, one of the best we've got, no matter what you think about his talent. And he's a box office star. This guy is doing it is as a confidence and the wherewithal and like that star quality that you can't buy. You know, he's born with it, and special future ahead. And someone that when you see the superstars coming to the end, when you see the Tyson Furies, the Anthony Joshuas, the Kell Brooks, the Amir Khans at the tail end of their career, you have to look at who's next. Who are those big stars? And he has a huge platform to do that, and we wanted to make sure he's seen by absolutely everyone. I think he's going to grow the sport. I think he's going to do amazing fans, and don't forget, this guy is an elite talent as well and has achieved so much, and yeah, very, very excited. Unbelievable addition to the light heavyweight division as well.
Regardless of whether people are a fan or not of his, he certainly had everybody talking. I believe he was trending on Twitter at some point during the night on Saturday as well. With that in mind, like you yesterday. How quickly do you want to see Ben's career progress? I
think we want it to progress quickly, because he's clearly at a level that most can't match. At the same time, we want him to become a superstar. I want to see him headline. I want to see him build his fan base. We think the arena that we're in, he'll be headlining. He'll be selling out in 12 months' time. That's the aim. That's the goal. Again, 25 years old, 3 fights in. We're going to make sure he gets the right experiences. He's built properly. Of course, we'll move him quickly, or quicker than other fighters, given his talent. But yeah, our job is to make sure he gets the right experience, becomes a superstar, and grows boxing, which I think he has the ability to do.
Right, Ben, we will leave that there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. I appreciate you allowing me to come down to do this interview, and thanks for speaking to me in Boxing News.
Thank you, mate.